Hi everybody, we're back now from that short break and we're still here with Dave Parker and he's given us some great stories. Dave, while we were taking the break, you and I were talking a little bit and I reminded you of a story you had told me about a young girl that you kind of helped, I guess. Did you help them or?
Well, I helped the family.
Right. Well, I'll let you take over and tell the story because I think it is fantastic.
Okay, there's a family in Washington State, and they're habituators like me. They've got a group of females and young that kind of hang around their house and watch over them and whatnot, and everything's kind of cool, and the gal was just kind of getting into it, and they were having some problems with this young male. Now, he was, I guess you'd call him a teenager, because he was about 9 foot tall. Well, apparently, he'd left a gift, which was like, it appeared to be the remnants of a dog chain, or a dog leash, and it had a couple knots tied in it. And that was 3 knots tied in it, and that was left as a gift. And then a little later, their teenage daughter let the little dog out to go to the bathroom, and all of a sudden this Squatch jumps out from behind a bush, and he's about 9 feet tall. And the daughter seen him, and it scared her, and she screams. And it scared the willies out of the Squatch, and he takes off running with a bush. Because she scared him half to death by screaming at him like that. Well, I'm sure he scared her. Well, there had been some things where then they had, there were some other, the gals kind of were gathered up, and they were watching TV, and here a rock comes, hits the side of the house, and goes clean through the siding and into the sheeting of the house.
Oh, wow.
Scared the girls half to death.
Whoa.
There had been some other stuff. And then when the daughter was driving her car on the road pretty close to their home, a green evergreen tree got snapped off at about 12 foot high, jumped in the road, and kind of run her car off the road.
Wow.
And this behavior was getting kind of aggressive. And she talked to me, and she was kind of wondering. And I said, well, let me sleep on it and think about it. And I thought, well, this is a teenage boy, and he's probably getting ready to want to start a family, and he probably isn't having any luck with his own kind, so he's trying to, you know, show off and things that guys do to attract a female, because he wants a mate. And I said, well, think about it. You know how when guys are teenagers and he's got no experience, he doesn't know what he's doing, he's all nervous, he wants to ask her out for a date, and she screams at him and scares him half to death. And I said, he's frustrated and confused and nervous, all rolled up into one, and he's looking for a mate. And I said, you know, you want this to stop? I said, here's what I think you got to do. I said, you got to put it in terms that he can understand that this ain't cool, and it's not happening, because you don't want him to snatch your daughter. And I said, what you need to do is, I said, you grab your husband, you got a gun? She goes, well, yeah, we got a little shotgun. I said, you grab that and bring that with you, too. And I said, you need to go to where he dumped that tree, and you need to let out your most heartfelt screams of just pure rage. I said, he might not understand the language, but he'll understand that what he did isn't neat, it isn't cool, and you don't like it. So they did see eye shine in the woods. They shined the light on that broken tree. They let out screams of rage, both of them, and then they walked back to their home. They heard the females around. She does her little woot-woot, and let them know it was cool. Now, later on that night, they heard the females getting after him. And after that date, they haven't had another single problem with him, and this has been 2 years now. Daughter's 18. That young male has no longer been a problem. He's not trying to pick up a human life anymore. I also talked to a gal. She had an encounter with a young male where he wasn't very far from her, and he wasn't a real big male. He was a child, really, but she was walking her dog, which was a German Shepherd, and there was a stump that didn't really belong there, and next thing she knows, he's blocking her path in the road, right by the edge of the road, and he's about 6'6", and he looked kind of nervous, and with one hand he's twirling a branch, kind of like when girls are nervous how they twirl their hair, doing that. And he was looking at her and looking at the dog, and she was a little scared by it, and once he moved on, then she turned around and went the other way, of course. But after talking with her, come to find out, just from listening to her, and we figured out some things that here, the dog didn't react to him at all, and this dog was trained as a protection dog. So she didn't see him as a threat, which is why she didn't react. And when we got to discussing further, well, the dog had been tied out in a certain area, and she had said how the dog was always coming in smelling terrible, and they had to give her lots of baths, and she thought it was because the dog got underneath this pickup and got like gear oil on her hair or something. Well, it wasn't that at all. It was that this young male Squatch had been made friends with the dog, and he'd been petting it, and that was his buddy, and that's why she didn't react to it. And what this gal didn't realize at the time is that, if you figure that as an adult, he probably stands 12 feet tall. Well, at 6'6", you figure, well, when you do a comparison with a human being, if you got a 6-foot tall man and a 3-foot tall kid, the 3-foot tall kid's probably about 5 years old. So this is a 5-year-old little kid. He'd been playing with the puppy and seen her in the road there, and, she was, of course, just kind of petrified of him because just a woman alone there with her dog. I told her, I said, well, he was probably more scared of you than you were of him, believe it or not, and he probably just wanted to get back to the group and be with his mom. And it made a lot of sense to her, and she didn't feel that he was threatening, but it was just his presence there and his size and his build were intimidating, but he didn't threaten her, he didn't snarl at her, he didn't make any aggressive moves. Once we figured it out, it made a lot more sense to her, and she was in an area on a relative's property where there had been encounters and sightings in the past, so obviously they're still living there. Although that family isn't interacting with them, they both live on the same land. I think a lot of... Now, what I do is I don't use methods like all these guys on TV do. I don't carry a gun. I don't need to. I don't use methods of trickery, like when you see Finding Bigfoot. Everything they do is all based on trickery. They don't like to be tricked. Nobody likes to be made a fool of, and neither does Bigfoot. Once they realize they're being tricked, they get mad and they go away, which is why they don't find him. A lot of these people want to go out in the woods and actively pursue them, and that's the wrong method. Then they run into some and they say, oh, well, he acted aggressive. Well, what do you expect? He don't want you there. If you want to go into the woods and whatever, I do a loud like a yoo-hoo or a yahoo or something. Kind of announce yourself. So if they're there, say it's in the daytime and they're sleeping, you don't want to surprise one of them and freak them out. It's kind of showing them respect by announcing yourself, just like somebody comes to your door. Well, you want them to knock on your door and wait for you to come answer. You don't want them to just come barge in your house. Here I am. Well, who are you?
True.
You might not be real nice to somebody who just walks into your house, a complete stranger. And that's what a lot of where people are finding somewhat aggressive things. I believe this is where a lot of it stems from. And it also comes from the way the family unit is comprised. Is your big males will be your hunters, and they'll be out away from the family, and it's the younger males that act as sentries, guards, so to speak, over the females and the children. And these are the ones that people are reporting showing aggressive behavior, the young males. Well, I think you get too close to mama and the kids, they're going to show you some aggressive behavior. And people talk about, oh, and he gave me this look, I just knew he'd kill me, and he chased me out of the woods. Really? He chased you. But he didn't catch you. Right. He didn't catch you. From personal experience, I know these things can outrun a horse. If he wanted you, and he wanted to harm you, well, you wouldn't be telling your story. It's just that simple.
True.
I have no doubt in my mind that if you were on a thoroughbred racehorse, you're not going to outrun one of them. And my mentor, Richard, who he's a retired law enforcement. He was with a search and rescue in California. He told me that he had talked to another cop who they had gone out on a peeping Tom report, and it turned out to be a Bigfoot. That thing was running down the side of the road, and they clocked it running at over 50 miles an hour.
Whoa.
And they just all of a sudden turned and went into the trees and was gone.
I didn't know they could run that fast.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
They go that fast. You ain't going to outrun one on a horse. So when you get these people saying, oh, they chased me, I think it's more they escorted them out of their territory type of thing. And if they acted somewhat aggressive, it gets the person to not tiddle and diddle and dawdle and just get the heck out of there. Lets them know they're not wanted. But you hear this and you don't hear of them hurting them, do you? They didn't grab them. They might have broke branches and thrown some stuff and scared the willies out of them, but they didn't harm them. And, now, I'm sure that's not going to go for every Bigfoot. I'm sure there's a bad one or two out there somewhere that have maybe been shot by hunters and hurt and harmed, and they just don't like humans. It's very possible. And you look at the Indian legends, and different ones were known to be cannibals and would hunt the people of the The tribes. Well, I'd say that's pretty easy pickings for game. But if the tribe wandered into the Bigfoot's territory and they're competing for the same food, and there's not enough food to go around, maybe it's Bigfoot's way of thinning them out enough so that there's enough food to go around for everybody. I'd say it's entirely possible. But us humans, it'd be pretty easy pickings for them. It would be a lot easier for them to get than a deer. They don't run half as fast as deer. And really, you look at, like, for example, children. They're pretty helpless. Something that big and strong that could do whatever it wanted to a child. Wouldn't be really nothing you could do about it because it'd be over so fast. But you're not hearing that. Now, there might be a couple of them out there that do stuff like that. I'm not saying that there isn't. But that's not normal behavior for them. If it were, my neighbor's kids would be gone. They aren't. I'm sure they get watched a lot, though. I'm sure they do, because I found that these Bigfoot are so curious, especially the one I call Little Andy. You do all kinds of stuff, and he's just curious. Now, I like to do a little bit of prospecting. My roommate Ralph and I, we had gone down to the creek and with a shovel and a bunch of 5-gallon buckets and a pickup. Grabbed a whole bunch of 5-gallon buckets worth of, the river gravel and brought it up to the house and sorted and sifted through it, and then I got it down and run it through a mini sluice. Well, here little Andy was in the woods watching. I'm running all this stuff through the little mini sluice, and he's watching. And I got a deal that's like a gutter, piece of rain gutter with a rubber mat ribbing in it. And then you got the water that hooks up to it, and it makes a nice little mini sluice. And you can run quite a bit of material through it, and I've got it in like one of those Rubbermaid tubs. So you run a certain amount through it. I usually run about a 5-gallon bucket, and then I scoop that out of the tub and put it back in the bucket I just finished going through. And then I dump that onto this pile of, I got kind of a compost and dirt, and I throw my coffee grounds there and stuff. So whenever I need soil, like for gardening or whatever, I've got a small pile to draw from. Well, I'm doing that, and right in broad daylight, I go into the house because I got hot and wanted something cool to drink, just chill for a while. And went back out and find footprints there. He'd been checking out my stuff. Now, I would imagine from his point of view, it's, well, what is he doing this for if, like, food isn't involved? Is he trying to get some kind of food that I don't know about or what? Because I'm sure a lot of their activity goes for, procuring food of some sort.
Right.
And it was just kind of a mystery to him. Now, he's swiped crystals off the porch before. We found nice crystals. Had it sitting on the one porch railing with some other stones that we found interesting. And, sometimes we find petrified wood and other stuff. Well, this one really nice piece of quartz crystal, about 4 inches long, that ended up gone. And he's swiped a variety of things. Cigarette lighter, he's taken a couple of rusty old machetes, he's taken my hatchet, he's taken a file, he borrows Ralph's machete all the time. It's usually pretty bent up afterwards. But he imitates us, and he's very curious, and there's times at night where we catch him peeking in the windows at us. I remember, for example, Ralph's first night here when he came here all the way from California. He had been in a situation where he wasn't able to, there weren't any jobs in his area, and he was just having a really tough time trying to make it, trying to recycle stuff, just to have enough money to survive. Then he was telling me about how rough it was there, and I said, you got to get out of there. So I sent him a bus ticket, and he come out here. His first night here, he's sitting at my computer, and he looks over his left shoulder, looks through the glass of the kitchen door, and there was little Andy standing right next to the rail of the deck, looking through at him, checking this guy out. Who is this guy? And I'm sure for them, he's probably the first non-white guy they've ever seen, because Ralph's a big Samoan dude. They've probably never seen anybody like that. Now, where I live, yeah, we do have other races of people. There's, we've got the Latinos, and we've got a couple Asian people, and there's some black people around, but they all live in town. They don't live out here, so I'm sure that it's been many generations since the Bigfoot have seen anything other than white people. And then later that night, Ralph woke up, he needed to go to the bathroom, and he looks out through the living room door, out front into the yard where the yard light's shining. And right behind my truck, he saw an adult male. He was on all fours, didn't have any problem looking over my truck. I got a big Dodge four-wheel drive, and it's got a topper on it that's, got to be at least 7 feet tall off the ground. And he didn't have any problem looking over that. He was too big to hide behind my truck. Then he come walking around the truck on all fours, and, Ralph immediately showed him open palms to show him they didn't mean any harm, didn't have any weapons, and stood there awestruck looking at the size of this thing. When you see a big adult male and he isn't more than about 30 feet away from you, you have no doubt in your mind as to what you're looking at. Especially when he's all lit up in the yard light. So Ralph got broke in pretty good his first night here.
Now, did Ralph always know they were there before he moved in? And everyone, I'm sorry, we should have told you, Ralph is Dave's roommate. Has he always known, though, Dave, that they were there? Before moving in?
I had told him they were here, and I had sent him different recordings and stuff, and he heard me. See, like what I do for a call to them, they do their owl call, and I do a 4-toot whistle where I whistle back to them. And I'm not trying to trick them by imitating their call. It's similar, but yet it's distinct and unto me. See, that way I always use the same call that identifies me as the human male, and they know that it's me. Unlike, like I said before, some of these outfits, they go out there and everything they do is they're trying to trick them. And I don't think that you're going to get the results you want if that's the approach you take. I just don't see it happening. They don't like to be tricked. And if the biggest thing is you show them respect. You don't go try chasing after them and stuff like that. And you give them their space and you let them interact with you on their terms, not your terms. I think you're going to have a whole lot better success rate. For example, if you're camping somewhere and you want to leave them a little gift, if you know there's one there, well, if you take like a little snack off to the side and put it in the edge of the woods, put it where it's behind you, just like when you set your drink down, you tell a little kid, now don't you drink my drink. As soon as your back's turned, they're into it. Same difference. You want it where they can get it, where they feel safe getting it, but where you don't see them getting it. As much as you want to watch them grab it and know that they got it, even more, they want to make sure you don't see them. There was one time where Ralph and I actually got to watch him eat something I put out. It was August of last year we were out. We had some garbage to burn, so we brought that. Threw that in the burn barrel on the way out to the barn, and we put him a gift, and I called to him, and I banged on the side of the barn to let him know to come get it. Got up by the house, and this was after the sun had gone down, so it was fairly dark. But you could still see, the sun had set, but you could still see a little bit, but if I would have tried taking a picture with my phone or something, you wouldn't have been able to tell nothing. He was over there throwing the bunch of brush and stuff in the burn barrel and snapping some sticks, which got him zapped, but that's neither here nor there. But we were out there, and I set the recorder up on top of a post, and I happened to look over, and I go, "Gee, Ralph, check it out." "What?" I go, "They're in it already." And it was, we barely got up close to the house, and they were into it already. And I go to him, "Well, come over here." I said, "Check it out. What do you see?" He goes, "Well, I see two dark shapes there. One big one and one littler one." And then he went back over to where he was putting stuff in the burn barrel. And I looked, and pretty soon there was a third one there. Now, they didn't squabble over it. They didn't act greedy like an ape would. They had just set the coffee can down on the ground, and they were taking turns reaching into it, grabbing what was in there. Which, that night had probably been a scoop of gravy train dog food, which, same thing, give my dogs. And then there were 3 eggs and a few strips of raw bacon. And that's what I put out for them. And it was neat to watch how they just shared. They didn't squabble over it. There wasn't any fighting or snarling or none of that. They were just completely quiet, and they were, all 3 of them lined up, the 2 bigger ones with the little one in between them. And they were just, you could see they were just reaching into that can every so often and grabbing out a handful and putting it in their mouth, which is definitely one of the neater things that I got to see. I'd like to see one of their little babies, because I'm sure it'd be adorable, but they keep them back. I've been working at getting their trust for a long time, but, well, it's not to that point yet. But now they do know that I won't shoot them, and I won't hurt them, because there was this one night where we caught a raccoon in the live trap. I grabbed my .22 pistol, and I went out and I popped him. I brought my gun back in the house, and I called out to him, and I called out, "Who's hungry? Are you hungry?" And I had 3 of them answer me. Now, this was within, maybe 3 minutes of shooting the gun. And they answered me, which tells me that they trusted that I wasn't going to hurt them, or why would they answer my call? So with that raccoon, I just walked down the road into the darkness till I couldn't see really anymore, and just laid it on the road. And in the morning, it was gone. Then I took them for the girls, one of those cans out there by the barn, and in the morning, that was gone too. So when I let the boys out, I've got enough trees chopped out of the way so I could see where that post is, and the red Folgers can on there is pretty hard to miss. So it's either there or it's not. And that's, I think it's kind of neat that they'll come when I call them, and they'll come get it.
Now, do you have interactions with them every day?
Well, not every day, but I probably could most days. Now, when it gets cold and it's winter and there's snow on the ground, they don't come up near the house. Because when it's like that, they tend to stay deeper woods where they don't leave tracks for you to find. Because they're real cautious about leaving footprints for you to find.
In your pre-interview, we were talking about a story about you and the big alpha male. You were hunting. Could you tell everyone that story?
Oh, okay. Well, this happened probably 2 years ago. It was deer hunting season, and when it's deer season, I usually keep my pistol on me, just in case. Because where I live, they give you a few free tags, so if you hunt your own property, you don't have to pay for a tag. You just get, you get a freebie. So anyway, it was getting towards evening, and the dogs needed to go out. I was out with them, and I'm standing on the deck, and here comes a doe, and I grab my pistol out of my pocket, and I don't know, she was probably about 100, a little over 100 yards away, and I shot her. Well, I shot the deer, and then it turned around and went the other direction and kind of started heading down the gully towards where my barn is. Anyway, I went in the house and grabbed my hunting knife and went after this deer I'd shot. Well, as I'm approaching the deer, I'm hearing coyote noises. There's, further north, there's two Bigfoots with their coyotes, and I couldn't see them. They were just out of eyesight, but you could tell by the way the coyotes were that they were there, and they had probably been chasing this deer. And they were trying, and I'm over there, and I dispatched the deer, and I'm gutting it and stuff, and they're trying to intimidate me off of this kill. And then there's my cat. He keeps crying. I don't know what he's crying about, but he won't shut up. And it's like, you yell at the kitty to shut up, and he won't shut up. And you're trying to do your stuff, and there's thorns everywhere, and you're just having a heck of a time. And then you got them two Bigfoots, and they're slowly moving closer. You can hear them. And they got these coyotes making all this yipping to try and intimidate me away from that deer. Well, I still got my pistol in my pocket. I'm not really afraid. I got my hunting knife, and of course the cat, he won't shut up. And I'm thinking, kitty, if I could see you, the last thing you would hear is a really loud bang. And he just won't shut up. And it finally got to the point where I just let out this scream of rage at the cat because he wouldn't shut up. And then the forest went silent. And you could hear the Bigfoots back off. And you didn't hear any more coyote sound. Anyway, they backed off, and I got this deer, and I'm trying to drag it out of this area, and it's horrible. They're the most thorns of anywhere. And where I'm at, if it's under 10 feet tall, it's either poison ivy, poison oak, or it's got some god-awful thorns on it. So you take a step, you pull the deer, you stop, you pull the thorns that are sticking you out of you from all the briars and everything, and you take another step and you do this, and I'm just having a heck of a time. I'm hearing my shirt rip and everything else. I'm going a long ways, and I'm kind of going to the Bigfoot. Well, I'm hungry because they probably are thinking, well, you're stealing my food. That's our food. I'm like, well, I'm hungry, and I rub my belly. And I'm taking this deer, and after a while, I kind of heard some snickering. It was almost like they were laughing at big as strong as they are, they can just throw it over their shoulder and walk off with it. And me, I'm struggling, pulling this doe through all this rough thickets, get to the point where I can get to it with my pickup, just drag it back to the house real quick. Well, I finally got it, and I knew from previous experience that, I got it up to the house, got it hung, come in, got a drink, went back out, and I skinned it right away and got it butchered up into the house, because I figured if it was there overnight, it probably wouldn't be there in the morning. They'd probably swipe it from me. So I took it, but I got to keep my deer. Other people, they might have got spooked off it, but I managed to keep my deer, which was a surprise. I didn't know if they'd come out towards me or not, but they didn't. It seems to me like the bigger males are pretty leery of me.
Why do you think that?
I mean, they don't show themselves to me willingly. They just seem to, they're doing their own thing, and they don't want nothing to do with me. I haven't seen all the big males. I just know that they're there from their calls. I'm just guessing, but when I heard 6 packs of coyotes call out all around in a circle at one time, I would say that means there's 6 big males. I've seen one when he was out in the open, and I spotlighted him. And there's times you know when they're around because you can smell them. Because the big hunter males smell different than the females and the kids. Because the ones that do the hunting, that's the ones where you get the skunk smell. They don't shop at Walmart and get something for masking their scent. When you're a big old smelly Wookiee in the woods, you got to find something strong enough to cover your musky, sulfury smell so that your prey doesn't recognize your scent.
Is that what you call them, Wookiees?
Well, I call them Wookiees. Other people call them Bigfoot, Sasquatch. I like calling them Wookiees.
I love it. I think I like that better. That's what I need to name it, the Wookiee Hour with Danielle Steadman. But no, go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted.
Well, I just think it's funny when you're a big old smelly Wookiee in the woods. What are you going to use? And now it's only the males that, from what I can tell, smell that way. And now there's a lot of people out there that you'll hear them say, well, they have a special gland that produces that scent. Really? Well, they're so close to humans, I don't have a special gland that smells like skunk.
Right.
Why would they? I've smelled some filthy humans before, and they never smelled like skunk. And I know what skunk smells like. And I just think of them people, they're just talking crap. They don't know, they're just guessing. But when you smell them, you'll get that musky smell that you smell, that's their natural scent, with that burnt fireworks type smell. And then you smell the skunk that covers that or masks it. Now, other times, if they don't have skunk, people say they smell terrible, like they've been rolling in garbage, maybe. I suppose if they don't have a skunk, they'll use something else. And I don't imagine that they bathe at all. I don't know. I've never seen one in the pond with a wash rag trying to scrub itself up or anything, so I don't know if they do any swimming or anything like that in the summer, but I would imagine when it's cold they're not doing anything like that, so I don't know if they bathe at all. I pretty much have my doubts, and I've never seen any evidence of it. But we do find a lot of different stick stuff around here. Now, I haven't found any of the glyphs people talk about.
The what? You have to remember, I'm just starting out. I have to learn all of this. The glyphs?
Now, when it comes to the stick stuff, people say that they sometimes find glyphs. A glyph is like symbols, almost like where they take sticks and put them in a certain shape, like you'll have a triangle shape or something looks kind of like a capital F or an E or something, or
so are they taking that word from the hieroglyphics and calling it glyphs?
Now, I've never noticed anything like that, but there's so darn many other sticks and crap around that you're not, I don't see that. But now I've found, like, on a trailhead, like where it is at the edge of the woods and stuff, you'll find tree arches to mark the trail that's theirs. Find a bunch of them here and there, especially down by the creek. Ralph was down there scouting around looking for some firewood trees, and he goes, oh, there's all kinds of arches down here. So we should have brought the camera with you. Another thing I found, when we opened up the overgrown road on the west side of my property that goes all the way up to the north end, is when we got down by this one area where a trail had come through, we found 2 trees, and this had been done to them at different times, but they were kind of twisted and broken and laid over it was like a twist break at about 4 foot high, not so as it would kill the tree. Mind you, the tree was still alive, but it was twisted in, and the top of it was laid down, and this was right along the edge of that road, and the direction that the top pointed towards, on both of these that were maybe 6-8 feet apart, They both pointed right towards my pond, a source of fresh water. I've heard other people say that they found stuff like that too. I was talking one time to an East Coast outfit. They showed this one picture of where this branch had been kind of broken like that kind of over the trail a little bit. And I said to the guy, I said, okay, now the direction that break was that pointing towards fresh water? And he goes, how did you know? He goes, yeah, that points right towards fresh water. There's a pond over that way.
Oh, wow.
They'll do that on the trails where it breaks like they cross the road or something. And I suppose that's let whoever know that, or if they got a stranger in their territory, well, that's the direction where you can go get a drink. It's water to drink. And we found manicured trails through the woods where you could probably drive a tractor through. And I think that's the trails that the big boys use so they can get through. Now, a lot of people, have had sightings of them. They're walking upright. Most of the time here, when we see them, they're on all fours and travel around like that.
That must be a pretty scary sight.
Can be. But now, like, this spring, Ralph and I were out cutting wood, and we were getting a bunch of owl calls, and then we looked over, and we seen the mother and the juvenile female together on all fours. And they'd look over at us and stuff, and, the only skin you see on them, really, is right at the nose and right around the eyes, and that skin is, gray like bleached out driftwood or something about that color. They blend in pretty good in the forest like that.
Now, can you describe to us what yours look like?
Okay. Now, the ones we've got here, their hair jet black. And the face on them looks very much like the Patty in the Patterson film.
Uh-huh.
Where it's a full hooded big nose like that. And the facial hair is about the same, where if you notice, like on the Patterson film, about all the skin you see on the face is just right around the eyes and nose. That's how they are here too, including the females. Now, other places in the country, they're said to have bare faces, where their faces don't really have hair on them at all. I think that probably several subspecies of them. It's like races in humans. I think there's several races in the Bigfoots. I think some are more peaceful than others. Now, the ones I've got here seem, as far as Bigfoots go, to be pretty docile. There's never been a report in this area of them hurting anybody. About 30 years ago, there were a bunch of reports of a bunch of sightings in the area about 10 miles north of where I live. But nobody's ever reported them hurting anybody. It's just that they've seen them. That's why I'm kind of careful about, with my Facebook profile. I use a fake location. I don't put my picture up. Let them look somewhere other than where I'm at, because the last thing I'd ever want is one of these idiots that think they gotta kill one so somebody can cut it up and study it. I think they just gotta be patient and wait and get one when someone finds a dead one somewhere that died from natural causes or something. I would hate to see one of them have to be murdered just so somebody, in the name of science and progress, I think it's unconscionable.
Well, let me ask you this, because we were talking about that scent gland. I've had some people say, though, that they will be in an area with a Bigfoot and there'll be no smell, and then all of a sudden there is a smell. What do you think that's coming from?
Well, I think it's because the wind direction changes. If they're downwind from you, you're not going to smell them. And wind changes direction all the time, especially you get in where there's hills valleys and stuff, wind doesn't flow. It changes directions all the time. There's people out there that say Bigfoot can turn invisible. Well, I haven't witnessed this phenomenon, so I don't know. You know, there's other people that say they can use portals, and I say, really? Well, okay, then explain to me how it works. And nobody seems to come up with any kind of real answer. Say, oh, it's quantum physics. Really? Like, that explains all the problems of the world. I don't buy it. I've never seen any sign of them using any kind of advanced technology, which it would probably take for something like that. I have found a stone tool they used. Even finding a stone tool is extremely rare. It was a handheld hammer made of granite. It had a clean break on one side, pretty square in shape, about 6 inches square, about 3 inches thick, and one end had been used to hit something because it showed quite a few signs of hitting something.
So do you not believe they're part of the primate family
they're
at
not
all?
an ape. I mean, you look at the footprints. An ape has feet like hands. A Bigfoot has feet like our feet. They're not an ape per se. They're a type of man.
So you believe
They're
they're
a
more
hairy man.
you believe they're more related to us than to an ape.
Well, there's a lot of stories throughout history, and you know, where the Indians have talked about how they had kidnapped women, and once in a while the women would return, and they had taken human women as wives, and sometimes they'd stay a while, but then they would return to their husbands and children. Well, we can't make a baby with an ape. It's been tried. You know, during World War II, the Russian scientists had tried to combine human and ape, and it didn't take. Didn't work. So they're different enough that humans and apes can't crossbreed. So whatever they are, they're much closer to us than what they are to an ape, because we can crossbreed with them. And there's hybrids, and you even look at the histories in Europe, like the story of Beowulf, and when he went and fought the creature Grendel. Grendel was a human hybrid, because he was King Hrothgar's son with the creature known as Hag. Well, Bigfoot girls aren't real pretty, so I could see why they might call one Hag. But apparently she had found him. He had been out boar hunting, and he was injured, and she found him hurt and took him back to her lair and nursed him back to health. And somewhere along the lines, they'd apparently been intimate, because otherwise she wouldn't have had this baby called Grendel. Now, when he was an adult, he was 9 feet tall. Well, it's pretty consistent with what you would expect a hybrid between a human and a Bigfoot, because if a male Bigfoot is 12 feet tall and a male human is 6 feet tall, well, 9 feet tall is right in the mid-range. It sounds like what you would expect from a crossbreeding of the two species, so I don't see that would be off. And when they show pictures in the books of what Grendel looked like, they showed him looking like a hairy ape man with a kilt. So that's from Europe, and that's a well-documented tale from, I'd say, I think that took place about 1040, and there was a King Hrothgar and everything So, anyway, that being said, there's many Indian legends of crossbreeding between the two species, and probably would do that in order to get some fresh blood in the gene pool so they're not having a bunch of deformed children. Because, you can only, with limited gene pool, you can only keep producing offspring for so long before you're going to start having birth defects.
Let me ask you this. I thought I had once heard a story that something about in 1977 that there was actually a human chimpanzee cross born, and they called it Medea or something.
No. Not to my knowledge, anyway. I know the government's been trying to do that, in order to create a super soldier. Who wouldn't want that? And I don't know, the government's probably taken some Bigfoots, too. Live or dead, I don't know. If they have, it's classified and not public knowledge.
Well, now this supposedly happened over in another country, and I mean it wasn't something that the U.S. I don't believe funded or anything like that.
What military guy wouldn't? What military general wouldn't want to have human intelligence with all the abilities of a Bigfoot? The strength, the speed, the night vision, all that.
And see, and I thought that they also tried it in Russia at that time, and I thought he did have a couple that were born. But I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Well, I saw recently on Facebook they were saying that there was a gorilla-human hybrid in India, and that's a fake story.
Okay.
To date, they haven't come up with any human-ape hybrids. I mean, they're close to us, but they're far enough apart where we can't interbreed with them. But with Bigfoot, we can. So, whatever Bigfoot is, it's a lot closer to us than an ape. And, you were also wondering what the ones here look like. They're very human-looking, to me anyway. And I've seen them pretty darn close, too, especially when you catch them peeking in the windows. You get a good look at them. I mean, you don't get such a good look at their eyes because all you see is squinting eyes with a bright green glow that's pretty intense. But they got a big nose, and they kind of got a heavy brow.
Do they resemble Patty or no?
Yes, very much so. And they have gray skin.
Patterson Gimlin.
And their face is hair covered, even the females, where you're not going to see any skin on the face except right around the nose and eyes. But here, they're a lot shaggier than Patty. They don't have the pointed head, or if they do, their hair covers it because they got a real thick mop of hair on their head, and hair is kind of stringy like dreadlocks or like a Raggedy Ann doll or something. And they've definitely got like bangs, and it's got like a mushroom shape, and kind of trails off down their back, kind of like a mane in a way. And the males will have a beard, pretty thick, heavy beard, where the females not so much. They got hair, but it's a lot shorter. But the ones that I've seen have all been jet black, with the exception of one. And I only got a partial view of it. It was running on all fours, and it was skirting the hill, and I couldn't see its head, I could just see its back. And it was the same colored gray as like those solid gray kitty cats with the gold-colored eyes. Now, from the size of what I saw, which was only part of one, I would say it was an adult male. There's nothing else going to run like that with its head below its shoulders like that had that much back. And definitely not a bear. Don't have any of them around. Wasn't a mountain lion. Didn't see any tail. Just seen about, good 6 foot worth of back there as it skirted around the hill. And usually when I get a glimpse, which is usually about every 2 months or so, usually I only get a partial. You very seldom ever get to see a full view of them. I remember one morning, I got up, I let the dogs out. I just happened to look to my right, and what I got to see was like a butt cheek and a back leg as one was walking up the hill to the north of my barn, because the buildings obscured it from there. So and when you do catch something, it's usually not much, and it usually doesn't last more than a second or two, and that's about it. And people go, well, where's all your pictures? Really? If I had a camera in my hand, by the time it was ready, the whole sighting would be over. And most of the time when I go out in the woods, being I'm kind of a little bit crippled up, it's usually to cut wood, and I got a chainsaw in my hand, and a gas can, and an oil can, and a file, and where do you got room for a camera? You know, when Ralph and I have been out there, we've gotten a lot of daytime calls when we're out cutting firewood, and it's always the females, and sometimes we catch a glimpse. Not often, but once in a while. Like, we're at the very north part of my property along the fence line. There's a couple of dead oak trees, good firewood, so we're cutting them up, and we're cutting one of them up. And we heard some calls, and, we were kind of calling back and forth, and we happened to look over, and we were able to see a large adult female, and then the younger female was with her, and they were going along the creek, and they were both on all fours, and we got a pretty good look at them for a little while, and then they moved off a little, and we couldn't see them anymore. And then 2 days later, when we went back to that spot to get some more wood from the tree, we were getting some more calls, and I looked off to the west, and I seen one duck behind a tree and kind of looking around, where you could just kind of see part of its head. And that was, a couple 100 yards away, so you couldn't really get much for detail. But that's the kind of stuff you see. They're really good at keeping concealed. And when it's like this time of year, you ain't going to see more than 25 feet deep into the forest anyway. And that's kind of how it is. I mean, they're just not going to step out and pose for the family photo. I wish they would. I would love to have all of them in a family photo, but this doesn't work that way. And tried game cams, didn't work. Had the SRA guys come down, they put up 6 game cams. And all it did is push them back away. Now, they said when they were putting them up, they felt like they were being watched, and something was skirting them in the forest. They couldn't get a good look at it, but they were being watched putting up the game cams. They did that. They got a lot of pictures. There were also a lot of deer in the pictures, but the one interesting thing is there weren't any fawns at all, which when you got 50 pictures of a bunch of deer, you would think there would at least be a fawn or two in there, and there weren't any. There were yearling fawns, but no little bitty, spotted ones, not a single one in any of them. They ended up with a total of 4,500 pictures and no fawns at all, which I thought was kind of odd. So something got the fawns. I don't know what. I don't know if it was Bigfoot got them. I don't know if it was a coyote got them. A lot of stuff to take them. Could have been dogs. I don't know.
This is a little
Not a single fawn with them.
This is a little off subject, and actually I have never asked you this. Do you believe that there could be dogmen up there where you are?
That's entirely possible. I have not had any encounters. However, about 100 miles west of me, there was a tale of a woman who had had a dogman encounter where a dogman was being highly aggressive, and 2 Bigfoot grabbed it and restrained it and allowed her to escape. I read a story about that. And it happened, or was reported to have happened.
Do you remember where you read that story?
Now people, every time people seem to talk about Dogman, they're always highly aggressive.
Yes, they are very aggressive.
That's not my field of expertise because I've not ever had a Dogman encounter. And if they're as aggressive as everybody says they are, I really don't want to have one.
No, you don't. You don't want to have one. Trust me, you don't. Okay.
Unless you can find a little one and catch it and domesticate it.
I doubt that'd be possible either. They're just
now,
aggressive.
I've heard other people say that Bigfoot and Dogman have been seen together, like one big family unit, and that the Bigfoot were in charge, like lording over the Dogman.
I don't know.
I told from a woman I had contact with in Alaska, and I don't know. Some of the pictures she'd send me, she'd say, "Can you see them in the trees?" And I don't know, there's just too much black in the background that I couldn't see it. And I don't know if I'm not going to say she was nuts, but a lot of what she was taking pictures of and trying to show me, I just wasn't seeing what she was. So I'm not saying that there couldn't have been something there. I wasn't seeing it. That's about all I know when it comes to Dogman. But your friend Vic is probably the go-to guy to find if you want to know more about them.
Yes, actually, I have been talking to Vic, so I'm trying to get educated up on everything, and of course I do my own investigating too, because I'm just the type, I have to form my own opinion. I can't form an opinion through other people. But anyway, getting back to what we're talking about tonight, which is Sasquatch. I know you also believe that they are capable of perhaps, and I know it's not just you, a lot of people, but that perhaps they can speak to people using telepathy. Would you care to share your views on that?
Well, a lot of people claim it. Now, I personally have not had them out there and sat down and had a conversation with them. But there's many people that claim they can mind speak, and they've, even my roommate Ralph has said twice that they've done a mind speak to him. The first time was he heard a female voice in his head, "Who are you?" when he was new here. And he says, "I'm Ralph, I'm your friend." And now he heard this over the lawnmower while he was mowing. And then there was one other time that they did that with him, and that's the only two times it's happened, and he's been living here a couple of years now.
But I know you believe that it possibly is true, because like earlier you were saying, which I want to go back to that, how would little Andy know to bring back, what you wanted? Not unless he understood English.
He either understands English
or he can
somehow reading my mind.
Right.
Because there's been several things like that, like the hatchet, like that. And, if something turns up missing and I want it back and I complain about it enough, it seems to show up. Well, how's he know that? I mean, he's either got to be able to understand English or he's got to be able to read my mind somehow. I don't know which. And the way that those big males control their coyotes and stuff, I don't know. Without a vocal command, they can get them to shut up in an instant, and multiple ones. I don't know how they do that. So, like I say, I highly suspect that they're telepaths, at least to some degree, but how you prove it, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, you can have your suspicions and whatnot, but as far as to conduct some kind of experiment to prove beyond a doubt that yes, indeed they do, I think that'd be pretty tough.
I agree. I don't know how anyone could ever
prove it. There's just
prove
been enough weird stuff happen that It almost have to be, in my opinion. And there are many people that talk about how they have done the mind speak. And personally, I think the more Native American blood you have running through your veins, the higher the chances you've got to be able to tap into that. Me, I don't have a whole lot of Native American blood. I wish I had a lot more, but hey, I guess it is what it is. Because I would love if they could talk to me like that, and I could just imagine how much I could learn from them.
Well, it sounds like you're doing a pretty good job on your own so far.
Well, and there's other things too, like from the different various oral histories of the Indian tribes, how they talk about you can't catch them because they can see through the eyes of a raven. Well, that almost sounds like a telepathic ability. And I don't know if they can or not, but I wouldn't be shocked. It almost sounds like, they talk about the wizard's familiar. It sounds pretty similar when you look at what a wizard's familiar is an animal that they can see through their eyes and their life forces are linked and yada, yada, yada. Now, I'm not surprised at anything they do anymore. And when you hear a lot of different calls in the forest, anything that seems out of place, I always question and think, well, maybe it's them. It's like when you hear a bullfrog calling from out in the middle of the woods instead of from a pond. Is that a bullfrog or is that a Sasquatch imitating one? They mimic so much stuff. I've read they can perfectly imitate a blue jay call. And as harsh and raspy as that is, I would imagine that would be one of the hardest calls you could ever try and duplicate. Now, I've heard them before where I think it was one of them imitating a dove, where it did the dove call, but it didn't have the lead on it. How your dove will, like your morning dove will have the strong lead, and then it tapers off. Well, the strong lead was missing, so it made me think, well, maybe it's one of them. But I'm sure if they're, for example, standing on guard duty or something, get bored, they got to find something to occupy themselves. What are they going to do?
True. Well,
and I have heard them sing before. Now, this was the first year that I was communicating with them. It just happened to be on my birthday, and I was alone. It was early evening, just after dark, and there were two females, and they started to sing. And it kind of started with a cooing, and then it went into it sounded like some tropical lovebird song that, unlike any bird I've ever heard, but it was the two of them doing it. And it was so beautiful. If you heard it, you'd have tears. And I thought it was kind of neat and cool, but it also kind of freaked me out, because it's like, okay, why are they singing me a love song? And then I thought, well, gosh, the time I was living here alone, it's like, well, I hope they don't come decide to snatch me, because if they do, well, about the time Papa comes home, I'm probably dead. So, I don't know. Now, when I talked to Richard about it, my mentor, he said that he felt they were trying to make themselves attractive to me. I think they liked me, but how do they like me? It's something I'd be comfortable with. I mean, I try to be nice to them and get along and treat them with respect. I guess we'll see what happens.
That's kind of a scary thought, though. I hope you don't get snatched up.
Well, it's entirely possible. You just never know.
Well, hopefully they will perhaps find some new blood for their family unit, and it will still be of the Sasquatch nature here soon.
Well, now, like, 2 days ago when Ralph and I were out, we we went down this gravel road that was one of those minimum maintenance roads, and we were checking it out, and we found sign of them. That was about 10 miles away from here. Now, I don't know if it's the same group or another group, or I'm not sure what the range of their territory is. But we definitely saw a trail that it was unmistakably one of theirs. And it was real close to a creek as well. But that's one thing with them, they follow water. And I'm sure that's especially true for a female that's nursing. Because I'm sure she's going to have a lot higher water intake just to make milk for a baby. So they seem to follow the creeks and streams. And one thing that we have noticed is like where the deer will have a game trail, if you want to find the Bigfoot trail, go a little bit higher. And they'll have a trail that is up just a hair higher up in the elevation, which is something that a predator would do so they can have a higher ground advantage, like if they want to ambush a deer. But you'll find the deer trail, and then if you look higher up, you'll find that's where you'll find the Bigfoot trail. And sometimes there's some pretty manicured trails. Like we found one on my neighbor's property. Ralph found it actually, and it was so big you could probably drive a tractor down it, and it was all pretty concealed. But now that trail, there's no briars in it at all, and it was probably a good trail 12 foot wide. So I expect that the big boys are using that.
Well, it seems like they are very, very smart. They're highly intelligent. Well, I know we've been talking for a while. There is actually, let's see, there's two more stories I want you to get into real quick. You also have a theory about haunted houses. Could you tell everyone your theory on haunted houses? Or some haunted houses, not all, but perhaps some might have this going on.
Well, I would say the ones that are in the isolated woods. Now, my late friend Kirk Baker, who lived in southern Missouri, he moved into this house, and there were Bigfoots on the property. And the former tenants that were there thought the place was haunted because they were hearing these eerie, weird screams and hearing stuff go bump in the night, and they didn't have an explanation for it. Well, the house had been vacant for a couple of years before they were living there. So the Bigfoots had free run of the place, so they kind of liked that. And they kind of wanted to keep the free run of the place, apparently. So they're out doing their weird, eerie screams and throwing stuff up against the house in the middle of the night. And here these people are inside all scared to death thinking that there's ghosts. And instead it turned out to be Bigfoot. Now, I'm not saying that every place is going to be like that, but see, it had been vacant, so they wanted to run the people off, so they tried to scare them. But
I don't know what's better, having a ghost or Bigfoot.
Ghost investigation, and they're way in a very isolated, remote location. I would say don't rule out Bigfoot as being the culprit. Instead, it might not be a ghost.
Well, that's what I just said. I don't know. Do you want a ghost or Bigfoot?
I'd rather have Bigfoot.
I probably would too. If truth be known, I would probably choose Bigfoot too. At least something I can see.
I don't know. The ones that are here where I live seem to be pretty peaceful creatures, and they seem to like me. So hopefully, if I ever had serious trouble here, they would come to my rescue. I think they would. I know I would come to their rescue if I could. I don't see a need for people to kill one for science. I think that's just wrong.
I do too. That's ridiculous.
I think they're far too human to just, why do you got to kill one so some idiot can cut it up? What did he do wrong? Oh, he just
Yeah, I agree. I don't believe. Even Dogman. I do not think a dogman should be killed, not unless he is threatening your life or your family or friends' life. I don't believe anything should just be killed, without warrant. Bigfoot, Dogman.
Well, especially a cryptid, because they're very scarce and rare and threatened species to begin with.
Yes, I agree. They are. I do agree.
Now, I think that there's a lot more Bigfoot out there than people realize. And a lot of these people trying to do their estimates, it's all just a guess. And what are they basing it on? I don't know. It's somebody's guess. Well, just because somebody guesses, it's a guess. They got nothing solid to back it up, so how far off are they? From what I've seen, in the area where I live, be a lot of them around. Because, for example, there's probably 14 in my group. Well, not too far from here, someone else did an investigation on another group. 10 miles away, we found sign of them. So, what does that tell you? Is that still the same group? I don't know if they have to range that far. So that could be another group of them. I've heard stories in the area 15 miles away. There was a guy who went out turkey hunting. And apparently, he had seen this Bigfoot, and it had a stick, and it sounded an alarm whacking away on a tree. And he thought, well, that's bad enough. And then when it got a response, I don't know if the guy dropped his gun, but he very well could have, but he said, he left there. He goes, they didn't have them damn turkeys. I ain't going hunting there again.
Well, Dave, wait one moment. Folks, we're going to have to take another break, and we will be back in just a moment. Hi everyone, this is Danielle Steadman, and I am the host of Dogman Diaries. I'm so glad everyone has been listening to our interview with David Parker. He's back now to give us a little more information on the family of Sasquatch that live right on his property. Hey Dave, how are you doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Well, I want to go ahead and jump back in where we left off. So I want you to go ahead and jump into that, if you will.
So, I guess now we're going to move on and talk about, one night I had waited to burn trash because I had to wait till after dark for the wind to die down. And once I burned the trash, I could hear some Bigfoot activity going on. Now, I don't know if it was the fire that attracted them in the burn barrel. I don't know if they could smell the garbage, if that drew them in or what. But they were coming in kind of close and making their different calls, and you could hear that they were around. So what I had done was to, I figured, well, I'll listen and see what happens. So I went in the house. I shut down all the electronics, TV, computer, fans, everything. And I just went and sat on the deck and figured I'll just kind of listen and see what goes on. Well, I could hear 3 females along the east ridge within about a stone's throw away from me if you could get through the trees. And then I could also hear some other noise that was pretty much straight east to me. And as I was sitting there, I was getting kind of a creepy feeling. And I could hear the kitchen window vibrating. And it was vibrating kind of like from a bass sound. Now, I couldn't figure out what the source of the bass would be because there's nothing for 2 miles further east of me before you even find another place where anybody even lives. And I'm on a dead-end road and there wasn't anybody down there. But you could hear the glass on the window vibrating like from a bass sound. Kind of like when you've got a TV sitting next to the window and you're outside and you can hear the glass vibrate. It was very similar to that. Well, this went on for a little while, and I was sitting out here, and that's when I was kind of new at it. So I had my cup of coffee, my pistol, and my spotlight. I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear these big, heavy footsteps taking off like the devil was after him. Here come to find out, I had one sneak right up by the garage, and he was hitting me with that infrasound. But by the time I got stood up with the spotlight, he was out of sight. He ran all the way across the yard, the ditch, across the road, across the other ditch, cleared a 5-foot-high barbed wire fence, never missed a step. And those big, heavy footsteps were coming down so hard and so fast that they almost merged into one. Now, just from the way that sounded, he had to be going at least 45, 50 miles an hour, just flying. And he got way out there a ways, and then I heard a big branch snap. Well, when that happened, I shined my spotlight over where the old chicken coop was, where I had heard some noise, and I caught a young one in the beam, and about all I saw was head and shoulders, and it ducked down. So I took my finger off the trigger of the spotlight and let the spotlight go off. Counted about 1, 2, 3, hit it again, and there it was. It was a Bigfoot child, and I would say it was approximately 5 foot tall, real lanky. So I'm assuming it was a female because it was not built like a male at all. It was just skinny, lanky, and eyes glowing bright green, had the real thick mop of hair on top of its head, kind of shaped like a mushroom, had a round head, didn't see any point, and was kind of walking a little hunched over along the hillside and moved over towards where the females were. I got a good full view of it, and then they got to hear my mean voice because I didn't like getting hit with that infrasound because it made the hair on my arms stand up, left me feeling kind of freaked out. So I did the real mean, you quit trying to scare me. And then a little bit later I heard sound like a stick whooshing through the air, kind of like when a fencing foil cuts the air. And I heard almost like a feline, wow. I heard that twice, so I assumed that was one of the adults taking a switch to the one that I caught in the spotlight and hitting it twice. But where that one had been over by the old chicken coop, there were black raspberries growing there. So I think it was eating the raspberries. Now maybe they misunderstood me and whooped the kid because they thought that I wanted those berries or something. I don't know, but I felt kind of bad about that. But to this date, which has been a couple years later, they have not tried hitting me with any of that infrasound ever again, which is fine by me because it's not an enjoyable experience. Because that left me, feeling all uneasy and everything, and I stayed up till almost sun. Well, I stayed up till sun up, and then I went to sleep. But it just left me feeling kind of freaked out.
Yeah.
And if someone does get hit with the infrasound, it does something to you where you kind of got to give your brain a reset. You got to do that by going to sleep. Now, it doesn't require a whole lot of sleep, because when my roommate got hit with it one night, I kind of used him to do an experiment to see. So, because after he got hit with it, he was feeling that way. I said, okay, I know what happened. Let's go in the house. I said, go get yourself a cool wash rag, cool yourself off, get yourself relaxed. I said, you're going to need to go to sleep for a while here. So he went into his bedroom, and it didn't take him very long. He was out. He was sleeping really deep, too. So I waited, give it about an hour, and figured, well, I'll wake him up. We'll see how he's feeling. That took me almost 5 minutes to wake him up. And he was really hardcore deep sleeping. But once I got him up, he said all the effects were gone, and he was surprised that he had only slept for an hour. He said to him it felt like he slept for 5 or 6. And so as little as an hour's sleep will work to shake off the effects of it. So for anybody who's out in the field and has this experience, that's what you do to make it go away. You get some sleep and you'll feel fine. Not a lot of people know that, but for those that don't, hopefully if you do get hit with the infrasound, you know how to shake off the effects, because it's not an enjoyable experience, and you'll feel the effects until you do get some sleep.
Well, I'm sure that the listeners who are out in the field researching this, if they don't know, I'm more than sure that they appreciate that information that you just shared with them. So thank you very much, Dave.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to cover on that subject before we move on?
Oh, I don't believe so. I mean, I've been hit with it on 2 different occasions. Ever since I give a mean voice, I've never been hit with it again. So, I don't know. I guess they understood me somehow, whatever the case is. I haven't been hit with it since, and that's fine by me, because it was not fun.
It doesn't sound like it was fun. I guess that's the thing about these creatures. If you stand your ground with them, and I guess show that you will hold your own ground.
Don't ever show them any fear.
Right, they just kind of leave you alone, don't they?
It emboldens them. Just think of a schoolyard bully. If you're scared of them, they're going to bully you more, and they're going to intensify it. But if you stand up to the bully, and you don't show them any fear, then they think, well, why ain't they afraid of me? And then they don't get so big and bad and bold.
Makes sense.
And I found that, don't ever show them fear, because if you do, they're gonna make you afraid of them. Just like if they start acting aggressive, yeah, it might take a lot of guts to not show them fear. I mean, you can show them respect, but don't show them the fear, because if you do, it just makes them more aggressive. And don't run from them. If you run from them, they're going to chase you. And a lot of people, well, I think this is kind of funny. A lot of people say, oh, and they chased me. Okay. A lot of times when they do that, it's just kind of triggering. They're a predator. It's going to trigger a predatory response. But a lot of these people who have had this supposed chase where they run for their lives, they don't realize how fast these things can go. If they wanted to grab you and harm you, they certainly would have been able to outrun a person with ease, not even break a sweat. So most of the time when that happens, they're more getting an escort out of the territory. And generally speaking, it's these males between 8 and 10 feet tall that are showing this aggressive behavior. And those are the ones that are set up on sentry duty to protect the family, to protect the females with the little ones. So that's why they show the aggressive behavior. When someone gets too close to the females, they're going to show some aggressive behavior. And yeah, they'll make sure that they leave their territory. And what you don't realize is, while you're trying to put distance between yourself and this angry-looking Bigfoot, is the females and the little ones are probably moving in the opposite direction to where they consider it to be safety. Because, like, when I'm interacting with the females here, you can bet there's at least one male in between them and myself. He might not make any noise. He might just be observing. But you can guarantee, between the girls and me, there's always going to be a male. Always. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. If not one, maybe two.
Well, I have heard that in a lot of the interviews I have, listened to, or things on television. I have heard that, the sentries are always there to protect the family.
Yes. Well, I'm not going to name names, but there's a guy out there who claims to be, he's one of those, instant experts. You supposedly have one encounter, write a book. Poof, instant expert. Well, this guy claims that he was in a deer stand and a deer come running up and it was all covered in sweat like a horse, but deer don't sweat like a horse, they pant like a dog, so right there is a story that, is kind of fishy. Then he says first one comes up, and he pointed a gun at it and looked at its face through the scope and said how human it was. He says it snarled at him, and he didn't leave the tree stand. And then it whistled, and another one shows up. So then he talks about how he jumps out of the tree stand and runs for his truck, and he's got him behind him, chasing him, and how he fires a shot back behind, so he's so heroic and gallant. And that if the one would have been a step further ahead, it probably would have got it in the head, because it hit the tree and parts of the tree blew out into its face. It kind of slowed it down, and he got to his truck and got away. And then he don't tell anybody for 10 years. I thought, yeah, sure. If I had two Bigfoot creatures that chased me like that, and I'm running for my life, you can bet I'm going to tell somebody. You're not going to just, mysteriously 10 years later, I've got this story. I thought, yeah. Another hoaxer, which, way too many of them out there. A lot of the stories that you hear, some of them are made up, and a lot of times, it's hard to tell for sure. And you got to just kind of figure out for yourself, do you find this person and their story to be credible or not? And like the example I gave, I found that guy's story not to be credible.
Well, I try to I think, for me personally, I know how terrifying my experience was, although it wasn't with Sasquatch, it was with Dogman. And I didn't tell people for a very long time. So I guess I just, I take everything with a grain of salt, because being there myself, I know there are things that can scare you so bad that you completely shut up about it. You just say, okay, I'm not talking to nobody about it. Or, like in my case, I was scared and I had things going on in my life, but honestly, I didn't think anyone would ever believe me. I mean, a werewolf, well, now we call them dogmen, but who's going to believe you saw that, So,
yeah.
I can understand, someone being scared. And then you are scared also of the ridicule, or someone, I would much rather, someone say I'm crazy than to say, oh, well, it's made up. Because you saying it's made up is calling me a liar. So why would I lie about something like that? I didn't lie about it. It scared me to death. And the truth is, I didn't want anyone saying, okay, you're a liar or you're crazy. Although I would choose you're crazy over you're a liar. But that's just my own viewpoint.
Well, like with me, when I had my Bigfoot experience, my first sighting, the very next time I went to town, I told someone about it. The first person I run into, I told them about it. I said, I seen a Bigfoot on my property. And they're like, yeah, right. I said, yeah. I was out getting firewood, and it was just standing there. Wasn't much to the sighting. I only saw it for maybe 3 seconds, and then it was gone. But that was my first sighting. That happened, it was probably 2:30 in the afternoon. But I couldn't wait to tell someone about it. It's like, I've seen one on my property. Something you think you never see in a lifetime, and how rare it is to see one. I don't know. To me, I considered myself to be blessed in order to have even had an encounter.
Well, I guess it just, like I said, it depends on the type of encounter you have. If you have a peaceful one, yes, I could see your excitement and you wanting to tell somebody. But like in my case, and perhaps that other fella's case, when you have a terrifying encounter, it kind of goes the other way. You're kind of like, okay, I'm not telling anybody about this. And I do have a lot of witnesses that go through that, and I know what that's like because, I went through it myself. But I guess, like I said, go listen to everything with a grain of salt, size it up yourself and, form your own opinion of what you think, of what you're hearing. But anyway, okay, moving on. I wanted to ask you one question before we start getting into the sound clips. I know you've told us the type you have on your property. Is that the only type of Bigfoots you've ever encountered or had any dealings with?
Well, I've never encountered them anywhere else, and this is a family, so they're all related to each other.
Right.
So they're all going to pretty much look alike. Now, except for the one that is the gray color that I only ever did see once. And it was not a full body view. It was just the top of its back as it was running on all fours, skirting the land, or skirting a hill. Its head was down where it couldn't see me, but it didn't realize its back and shoulders were up high enough I could see it. And other than that, they're all jet black.
I want to ask you one question about...
It looks very similar to the one in the Patterson film.
I want to ask you about that gray one. Is there any chance, since you never got to see its face, is there any chance at all that could have been a Dogman?
No.
Okay.
Dogman would have a muzzle.
Oh, okay, so you saw that much.
He's got a human-looking face.
Oh, okay, so you did get to see a little bit of, I guess, the profile of it.
Well, when you catch them looking in the window at you, and they ain't very far away.
Oh, okay, so this is one that was looking in the window at you.
Well, the last one that I got a really good look at was a 10-footer, and the reason I can say he was 10 feet is because his eyes were at 9'6", and the way that I know that is because he was standing right next to the rail on my deck, and it's got an awning over it, so the support was there, so I had a guide to go off of, and I was actually able to take a tape measure and measure the height of where his eyes were, and then I kind of guesstimated a little bit, from the eyes to the very top of the head, so I put him at 10 foot, and I happened to be sitting at my computer, and I just happened to feel like I was being watched and looked to my left, and there the big boy was. He had his eyes squinted, and they were glowing green. He had that big hooded nose, did not look like an ape, looked like a big old honking nose like a human. He had a bigger nose than Patty, but he was male. And you could see the gray skin around his eyes and nose, and that was about it. And once he realized that he was busted, well, then you could see where he turned to the left, and then everything was black, so he was gone into the darkness, and I got up out of my chair and come out and kind of called out to him. I don't know where he went. But, you guys come to see me, and then I could hear a call or two out there, and I took them a snack out by the barn. I walked out there in the dark, and I do that because it makes me vulnerable. And the reason I do that is to show them that I trust them, that they're not going to hurt me. And I don't spotlight them anymore because the way that their eyes just radiate so much light back, it's like you hit them with a spotlight and they radiate so much light it looks like a demon. So you know it's got to hurt their eyes. So I don't do that because I don't want to make them mad. I guess if we're going to get along, you quit doing things that cause them pain.
Right. Well, that's smart thinking. I mean, that's smart on your part. That's very smart.
I don't carry a gun with me anymore. I don't feel the need to. I go out there all the time in the darkness. I know the way. And you can hear them. Sometimes there's half a dozen of them out there, and sometimes the girls get all excited because they like the goodies I bring them. And you'll hear them. They'll be doing owl-like calls, and then they get excited, and they kind of sound like chimpanzees. And sometimes that owl sound turns into a crow, and I don't know. I've never heard crows cawing after dark, really. And I don't believe that owls and crows and chimpanzees all travel together, so I don't think I got that here.
Right.
Must be the Bigfoots. And they get all excited, and I put the stuff out there, turn around, and come back towards the house, and sometimes about the time I round the corner by the barn there, I can hear them. They're into it already, because I usually give them a scoop of gravy-trained dog food, and you can hear them crunching that. The barn's probably 40 foot long, so 40 feet away, and they're into it already.
Right.
But as soon as I turn my back to it, they're heading right for it. Don't come long to get into it.
Yes, now I have heard that they really do like dog food.
Well, I suppose they should like gravy train. That's pretty good stuff. Figured it was good enough for my boys. And good enough for the kitty. Oh, what the heck now? Sometimes when I feed the cat, that young male, he sneaks up on the porch, and if the kitty's got any food left, he'll snipe it.
Andy?
Yeah, little Andy. He'll come steal the kitty food.
You gotta love Andy.
Like, my roommate Ralph was sitting at the computer one night. Little Andy was up to get the kitty food, and this was after he ruined my doorknob to the kitchen door. I think he wanted to come in and get some more because he was hungry or something. And I hadn't been to the lumber yard yet to buy a new doorknob, so there's just a hole in the door because that doorknob was bent so bad I had to take the screws out of the inside and in order to get the door to open. So I took the stuff out. Before I went to the lumberyard, Ralph's sitting there one night, he's, I don't know, checking email, playing video games, doing Facebook, whatever. And he heard the door pop a little bit. And he looks over, and his black finger sticks through that hole and pulls the door shut.
I'll be. Well, Dave, I appreciate you giving us all this information. And, folks, now we're going to kind of switch over, and Dave is going to go over the recordings that he sent to me. We're going to start with each recording. He's going to kind of tell us, a little bit about it. If you cannot hear these recordings as well, doing it this way, don't worry, don't get excited. We are going to also upload these recordings onto my Dogman Diaries on Facebook. So you can go to Dogman Diaries on Facebook. You'll be able to listen to them from there on your own. And a bonus will be Dave has agreed that he will also be on there talking to people. So, if you go on there and you have a question about something, he is actually willing to answer questions and talk to people in the comment section underneath every single sound clip. So that's really great of him to, agree to do this. Dave, the first recording I have up right now is the After Dark Gold, the one on 9/27/14.
Okay.
Is there any place specifically you would like for me to go?
Well, it starts out with the females doing the owl calls, and there's a part in there, I'm not exactly for sure where it is, but you can kind of hear them talking, and I kind of make that comment. They're talking, where it's a little clip, but if you get like about that 7.5-minute mark and play that, that's got some of the most fantastic whoops I've ever recorded.
Okay.
I've heard them before, but by the time you get the recorder and you get it out, then they don't do it. And you're like,
All right, well, let's just start, and I'll see what I can find. Okay, folks, I'm going to start the first time, because I was listening to it a little bit last night. I'm going to go to about, this is 3:23 in, and I think I heard something between here and 5. I'm going to speed it up a little bit, everybody, to 4:23.
Well, you that close, you don't say nothing?
Okay, I'm going to go to about 5. Let's try 5:26.
I'm in trouble hearing what. That's why I said 7.5 minutes, or 7.5. Quite a few of them, actually.
I thought I'd heard some before that, but maybe you're right. We'll just go to the 7:29 and see. Alright, folks, it was at 7:10. I'm going to go back a little ways. Or 8:10, I'm sorry. I heard the first
you gotta have
whoop.
it turned up to the whoop. They're in there, and it's ringing whoop.
We'll see if you guys can hear it. I'm going to go back. It's right at 8:07 is where I hear the first one. Okay, I went all the way back, so y'all listen. This is at 7:51, and it should come in about 8. Okay, we're at the 8-minute mark, and around 8:07, you should start to hear it.
I believe it's
There was another one at 8:40, folks. And 8:48. Right at 9. $9:15.
And they stopped at 10.
That was 9:36, everyone. That was 9:49.
Oh, that was probably the last one. Now, for me, what I'm hearing, it sounds like a pressure cooker on the stove. So that's all I can hear over.
Okay, I'm hoping that they got to hear those. If not, like I said, we're going to put them in the comments. Now, where are on Dogman Diaries, and they can go to Dogman Diaries and they'll be able to listen for themselves. Now, where would you like me to jump to now?
That, you get about to the 15-minute mark.
I think I found it. Didn't I say last night it was at, I think it was at 17 and a half is where I found a bunch of them. And I was like, wow. And I think
where the males were getting the coyotes all
I think that's when the males come in because, man, I can tell a difference. Me personally, everybody, I feel like the males are much deeper and the females are much higher. And I've been listening to it for a few days, though, and it's so funny. I sit here and I'm in such awe. I'm sitting here with my mouth open, grinning looking like a big idiot. But this is the first time I've ever got to do something like this, and I just find it so neat and so cool. I'm just like, wow. But
well, I think I've got some of the better recordings out there of anybody.
You do. I mean, these are incredible. I mean, and just like I said, my friend who's going to be co-hosting with me, he was blown away. He was like, those are really cool. He was like, that's cool. But, and he had never heard nothing like it either.
Put a lot of stuff out there, and it's just crap, really, as far as trying to put it forth as evidence.
Yeah, these are great.
It's just so faint, you can't really hear nothing, and you know, but I think mine, if I'm going to present it as any kind of evidence, I want to make sure it's worthy.
Right.
You want to make it where it can pass the stink test, where it's not so faded out. Now, anytime somebody wants to take something like that, if they use like the Audacity sound program and actually play the clip on that, then they can see the high and low peaks and everything on there. And sometimes it's kind of nice just to have that graph to look at.
Right.
Sometimes it'll show where, like, for example, a whoop is at or something, and you can go right to it. And you can see how, okay, that rises up, and that makes sense. Right. Now, I've also had before where I've recorded something, and what was recorded didn't sound nothing like what I experienced. Huh. And here's a perfect example. One night there was a female back by the barn, and I was calling back and forth with her, and then she threw something, and it hit in a tree, and I looked over there, and she moved. And then she threw something else, and it hit in another tree, and when I was distracted and looked at that, then she moved again, and my deck, I was standing out by the deck, which is on the east side of my house, and she got over somewhere like right in the edge of the woods by the west side of my house, and 3 times she screamed like a woman, but now when I recorded it, it didn't sound like a woman screaming, it sounded like whoops, which, it's like, well, when I went over it, I thought, well, this can't be the right one because it doesn't sound like a woman screaming. And when I heard that, I kind of called to her, but I was not going to go over there and approach her and go, well, what's the matter, baby,
Right?
With that much emotion, I don't want to be around a human woman that's that emotional, let alone one that's big enough to rip your arm off and beat you with the bloody end of it.
Exactly. I do not blame you one bit, sir. Well, I've sped up here. I'm at 1711, folks, and I think there is something right around between here and 1730, they'll start. But I did notice that the 1730 mark, it started, and I think it carries on until like 18 or 18 and a half or something. But let's just listen.
Is that where you hear something that sounds like the Hound of the Baskervilles howl with the coyotes?
I'm not sure. Let's listen and see.
Well, over the phone, I can't hear it.
Oh, okay.
Well enough to really say too much.
There's a cow. Dog. Okay, everybody, that actually started at about 1830 in is when it started. And it went until about the 22-minute mark on it. So go right around there, and I could hear a lot of stuff going on. We're going to take a break, And when we come back, we're going to listen to the rest of the sound clips. So everybody, please come back and join us, and we will be back in just a moment. Thanks.